The Big Space Bullies. In the vast emptiness of space, there was a group of aliens called the Zorkal. They were big, mean, and thought they were the bosses of the whole galaxy. For thousands of years, they'd been pushing around weaker aliens, making them do what they wanted. The Zorkal looked weird. They had blue skin, 4 arms, and 3 eyes. Their heads were shaped like squashed footballs. They were tall, about 9 feet, and very strong. But what made them really scary was their advanced technology. Their spaceships were huge, like floating cities in space. These ships could destroy entire planets with just one shot. The Zorkal were proud of their weapons and loved to show them off. One day, a Zorkal scout ship was zooming through a part of space they'd never explored before. The captain, named Grok, was bored. He'd been flying for months without finding anything interesting. Suddenly, one of the crew shouted, "Captain, look at this." Grok floated over to the screen. His 3 eyes widened in surprise. There in the middle of nowhere was a small solar system, and on the 3rd planet from its sun, they detected life. Finally, Grok said, rubbing his 4 hands together in excitement, "Let's take a closer look." As they got nearer, they started picking up radio signals from the planet. They heard music, voices, and saw pictures on their screens. The aliens on this planet called themselves humans, and their world was Earth. Grok laughed. "Look at them. So small and weak. They haven't even left their own planet yet. This will be easy." The crew agreed, chuckling at the primitive tech they saw. Humans were still using fossil fuels, and their space program could barely reach their own moon. Grok sent a message back to the Zorkal homeworld. Found new species, seen weak, requesting permission to conquer. The reply came quickly. Permission granted. Bring samples for study. Grok grinned, showing his sharp green teeth. Prepare the invasion fleet, he ordered. Over the next few weeks, more Zorkal ships arrived. They hid behind Earth's moon, getting ready for their big entrance. They wanted to scare the humans into giving up without a fight. "These humans will make good slaves," one Zorkal officer said. "They look strong enough to work in our mines." Another added, "And their planet has lots of resources we can use. Look at all that water." The Zorkal were confident. They'd done this hundreds of times before. Their plan was simple. 1. Show up with big, scary ships. 2. Demand that humans surrender. 3. Take over the planet. They never imagined that things might go differently this time. On the day of the invasion, the Zorkal moved their ships into position around Earth. Their massive fleet darkened the skies over every major city. People on Earth panicked. This was way beyond anything they'd prepared for. World leaders scrambled to respond. Military forces around the globe went on high alert. But what could they do against such advanced aliens? Grok's voice boomed from the sky and in every language on Earth. "Attention, humans. We are the Zorkal Empire. Your planet is now ours. Surrender, and you may live as our servants. Resist, and we will destroy you." He expected the humans to give up right away. That's what usually happened. But the humans didn't follow the script. Instead of surrendering, the humans got angry. Very angry. In New York, people shouted insults at the ships. In Tokyo, they waved their fists. In Lagos, they threw rocks, which of course didn't reach the ships, but it's the thought that counts. Grok was confused. This had never happened before. "Don't they understand?" he asked his crew. "We can destroy their whole civilization." What Grok didn't know was that humans had been preparing for this day for a long time. They'd made movies about alien invasions. They'd written books about fighting off space monsters. In a way, humans had been getting ready for this moment for centuries. And they had no intention of surrendering. As Grok watched in disbelief, the humans began to organize. Instead of each country fighting alone, they started working together. It was the first time in history that the whole world united against a common enemy. The Zorkal were in for a big surprise. They thought this would be an easy victory. but they were about to learn a hard lesson. Never underestimate humans. Grok looked at the defiant earth below, scratching his football-shaped head with one of his four hands. This, he said, might be trickier than we thought. Little did he know, the real trouble was just beginning. The humans were mad, they were united, and they were ready to show the galaxy why you should never, ever mess with Earth. The stage was set for a battle that would change the course of galactic history forever. First, hello goes wrong. The Zorkal were feeling pretty good about themselves. They had their big, scary ships floating over Earth's major cities. They thought the humans would be shaking in their boots by now. Boy, were they in for a surprise. Grok, the Zorkal captain, decided it was time to meet these humans face to face. He picked a spot for the meeting. A big field outside New York City. He thought it would be perfect for showing off how awesome the Zorkal were. The Zorkal landing ship was huge, about the size of a football stadium. It slowly descended from the sky, making a loud humming noise. The grass below it flattened from the force of its engines. Humans from all over the world watched on TV and the internet. Some were scared, but most were just curious. What did these aliens want? Why were they here? As the ship landed, a door opened with a dramatic hiss. Out walked Grok, followed by 10 of his biggest, meanest-looking soldiers. They were dressed in shiny armor that changed colors in the sunlight. Grok looked around, expecting to see humans bowing or running away in fear. Instead, he saw a small group of people standing calmly, waiting for him. There were world leaders, scientists, and a few regular folks who had snuck past security to see the aliens up close. One brave reporter shouted, "Hey, blue dudes, welcome to Earth. What's with all the scary ships?" Grok was shocked. No one had ever talked to him like that before. He puffed up his chest and said in his most important voice, "Silence, puny human. We are the mighty Zorkal Empire. We have come to take over your world." He expected gasps of horror. Instead, he heard laughter. Yes, the humans were laughing at him. One of the world leaders, a short woman with gray hair, stepped forward. "I'm sorry," she said, trying not to giggle, "but did you just say you're here to take over? That's adorable." Grok's 3 eyes blinked in confusion. "Adorable? We are not adorable. We are terrifying. We have conquered hundreds of worlds." The woman smiled. "Well, you haven't tried to conquer Earth before, have you? We're not like other planets you've bullied. We don't give up easily." Grok was getting angry now. This wasn't going according to plan at all. He pointed at his ship and growled, "Look at our advanced technology. We could destroy your cities in seconds." A young scientist in the crowd raised her hand. Actually, we've been studying your ships since you arrived. They're impressive, sure, but not as advanced as you think. We've already figured out how most of your tech works." Now it was the Zorkal soldiers' turn to be shocked. They looked at each other nervously. How could these humans have done that so quickly? Grok tried a different approach. "Listen, humans, if you surrender now, we'll be nice rulers. You can keep some of your freedoms. Maybe." An old man in the crowd shouted, "Freedom isn't something you give us, buddy. It's something we already have. And we're keeping it." The crowd cheered. Grok was getting more frustrated by the second. This was supposed to be easy. He decided to show off a bit. He pulled out a fancy-looking gun and pointed it at a nearby tree. "Watch this," he yelled. A beam of light shot out, and the tree disappeared. Grok grinned, sure that now the humans would be impressed. But when he turned back to the crowd, he saw they were all holding up their phones, recording him. "Cool special effects, dude," someone shouted. "Is this for a movie?" Grok lost it. "This is not a movie," he screamed. "We are here to conquer you." The gray-haired leader stepped forward again. "Let me make this clear," she said calmly. "We are not surrendering. We are not becoming your slaves, and if you try to force us, you'll regret it." Grok laughed. "You? Make us regret it? What could you possibly do to us? Suddenly, there was a bright flash in the sky. Everyone looked up to see one of the Zorkal's smaller ships falling, burning as it entered the atmosphere. The human leader smiled. That was one of our new satellite weapons. Consider it a warning shot. Grok's mouth fell open. How? When? He thought the humans were helpless. The leader continued. We've been preparing for something like this for a long time. All those alien invasion movies, they weren't just for fun. They were training. Grok looked at his soldiers, then back at the humans. For the first time, he felt a tiny bit of fear. These humans were not what he expected at all. This isn't over, he growled. You'll see what happens when you make the Zorkal angry. As Grok and his soldiers stomped back to their ship, they could hear the humans behind them, still laughing and taking pictures. The big spaceship took off, leaving behind a very confused group of Zorkal and a very amused group of humans. As the ship disappeared into the sky, the human leader turned to her people. Well, she said with a grin, that didn't go quite how they planned, did it? But folks, this is just the beginning. They'll be back, and next time, they won't be here to talk. The humans nodded, suddenly serious. They had stood up to the bullies, but now the real fight was about to begin. In space, Grok was having a meltdown. Prepare the fleet, he shouted to his commanders. These humans want a war. We'll give them a war they'll never forget. Little did Grok know, that's exactly what the humans were hoping for. They had a few surprises ready, and the Zorkal were about to learn why you should never, ever underestimate the human spirit. The stage was set for an epic battle, humanity versus the Zorkal Empire. And may the best species win. Humans fight back. Grok was mad. Really, really mad. His face was turning from blue to purple as he stomped around his ship. How dare those puny humans laugh at us? He shouted. We'll show them who's boss. He called all his commanders together for a big meeting. It's time to scare these humans, he said. Let's blow up one of their moons. That'll teach them to respect us. The Zorkal aimed their biggest gun at Earth's moon. They thought this would make the humans give up for sure. But down on Earth, humans weren't just sitting around waiting to be scared. They were getting ready. In secret labs all over the world, scientists and engineers were working day and night. They were building new weapons and defenses, things the Zorkal had never seen before. One of these scientists was Dr. Emma Chen. She was small and always wore big round glasses, but don't let that fool you. Her brain was sharper than any Zorkal weapon. We've studied their tech, she told the world leaders. And guess what? We found a weakness. Their ships are protected by a force field, but we know how to turn it off. The leaders leaned in, excited. How? They asked. Dr. Chen grinned. We'll use their own energy against them. Like judo, but with science. While the humans were planning, the Zorkal were getting ready for their big show. Grok's voice boomed from the sky again. Attention, humans, watch as we destroy your moon. Then you'll see how powerful we are. People all over Earth looked up at the sky, worried but not panicking. They trusted their leaders and scientists. They knew something the Zorkal didn't. Earth had a few tricks up its sleeve. The Zorkal fired their giant space gun. A huge beam of light shot towards the moon. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then suddenly, the beam curved. Instead of hitting the moon, it turned and struck one of the Zorkal's own ships. The ship exploded in a giant fireball. Grok's jaw dropped. What just happened? He yelled. On Earth, Dr. Chen was jumping up and down, clapping her hands. It worked, she shouted. Our reflector shield worked. You see, while the Zorkal were busy trying to look scary, the humans had built a special shield around the moon. This shield could bounce energy beams back where they came from, like a giant mirror in space. Grok was furious. Fire again, he ordered. But every time they shot at the moon, their beams bounced back, damaging their own ships. After losing 5 ships, Grok finally yelled, "Stop firing, you idiots." Now it was Earth's turn. The humans had been busy building their own space fleet. These ships were smaller than the Zorkals, but they were faster and smarter. Led by Captain Maria Rodriguez, a tough ex-fighter pilot, the Earth fleet zoomed out of hidden bases on the far side of the moon. They flew circles around the big, clumsy Zorkal ships. "Yeehaw!" shouted Captain Rodriguez as she led the attack. "Let's show these bullies what humans can do." The human ships fired special missiles. But these weren't ordinary missiles. They were filled with a weird, gloopy substance. When they hit the Zorkal ships, the gloop spread all over them. "Ha!" laughed Grok. "Is this your great attack? Sliming our ships?" But his laughter stopped when he realized what was happening. The gloop was eating through their force fields like acid through paper. "Our shields!" cried one of Grok's officers. "They're disappearing." Without their force fields, the big Zorkal ships were in trouble. The smaller, faster human ships zipped around them, causing all sorts of damage. Grok couldn't believe his 3 eyes. How could this be happening? The mighty Zorkal fleet was being beaten by a bunch of humans. "Retreat," he finally yelled. "Get us out of here." As the Zorkal ships turned to run away, the humans had one last surprise. They fired up a huge electromagnet they'd built on the moon. It was so strong it could pull metal from miles away. The Zorkal ships, their engines damaged from the fight, couldn't escape the magnet's pull. They were dragged back towards the moon, stuck like flies on flypaper. Grok watched in horror as ship after ship was caught. Even his own command ship was being pulled in. "This is impossible," he shouted. "We are the mighty Zorkal. We cannot be defeated by humans." But defeated they were. By the end of the day, half the Zorkal fleet was destroyed or captured. The rest had run away, leaving their leader behind. On Earth, people were cheering in the streets. They'd stood up to the Galactic bullies and won. In the White House, the president shook Dr. Chen's hand. "Well done," she said. "But this isn't over, is it?" Dr. Chen shook her head. "No, Madam President. The Zorkal will be back. And next time, they'll be really, really angry." Captain Rodriguez, just back from space, grinned. "Let them come," she said. "We'll be ready." As night fell on Earth, people looked up at the moon. If you looked closely, you could see the Zorkal ships stuck there, like a child's toys left in the yard. It was a reminder to everyone. Humans were not to be messed with. The Zorkal had learned that lesson the hard way. But the big question remained: what would happen next? David versus Goliath. In space, the Zorkal were not happy campers. Their big, scary fleet had been beaten by the tiny humans. Half their ships were stuck to the moon like fridge magnets. The other half had run away with their tails between their legs, if they had tails, which they didn't. But the Zorkal Empire was huge. They had more ships, lots more. And they were coming to Earth with one thing on their minds: revenge. Back on Earth, humans were celebrating their big win, but they knew the party couldn't last forever. The Zorkal would be back, and they'd be mad. In a secret underground base, Earth's best minds were working on a plan. Dr. Emma Chen, the genius who helped defeat the first attack, stood in front of a big screen. She was showing pictures of the new Zorkal fleet heading towards Earth. "They're coming back," she said. "And this time, they're bringing everything they've got." Captain Maria Rodriguez, the brave pilot who led the space battle, whistled. "That's a lot of ships," she said. "How are we going to fight all of that?" Dr. Chen smiled. "The same way David beat Goliath," she said, "with smarts and a really good slingshot." Everyone looked confused. Dr. Chen laughed and started to explain her plan. Meanwhile, in space, the new Zorkal fleet was getting closer to Earth. Their new leader was General Zorg, Grok's meaner, uglier cousin. He had 5 eyes instead of 3, and all of them were angry. "We'll smash those puny humans," Zorg yelled. "We'll destroy their cities. Will do lots of mean things. Zorg wasn't very good with words, but he was good at being angry. And right now, he was the angriest Zorkel in the galaxy. As the Zorkel fleet entered the solar system, they expected to see Earth's tiny fleet trying to defend the planet. But there was nothing. No ships, no weapons, nothing. Zorg laughed. Ha! The humans are hiding. They're scared of us. But he was wrong. The humans weren't hiding. They were waiting. As the Zorkel ships got closer to Earth, something strange started to happen. Small lights began to appear all around their ships. Hundreds of lights, thousands of lights. What are those? Zorg asked, squinting his 5 eyes. Suddenly, all the lights turned on at once. They were so bright that the Zorkel couldn't see anything. It was like someone had turned on 1,000,000 flashlights right in their faces. My eyes. Zorg screamed. I can't see. While the Zorkel were blinded, the real attack began. From behind the moon, Earth's ships appeared. But they weren't alone. With them were thousands of small robots, each about the size of a basketball. These robots, designed by Dr. Chen, were Earth's secret weapon. They flew towards the Zorkel ships, attaching themselves like space barnacles. Once attached, they started to drill. Inside his ship, Zorg was panicking. What's that noise? He yelled. Why is everything shaking? The robots were drilling holes all over the Zorkel ships, but they weren't trying to destroy them. They had a much cleverer plan. As the robots drilled, they released millions of tiny metal bits into the Zorkel ships. These bits got into everything. The engines, the weapons, even the air vents. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Zorg, finally able to see again, laughed. Is that all? He said, some lights and a few holes. Prepare to fire the big guns. But when they tried to fire their weapons, nothing happened. The tiny metal bits had gummed up all their systems. Their huge, powerful ships were now about as dangerous as giant space paperweights. Captain Rodriguez led the attack on the helpless Zorkel fleet. But instead of destroying the ships, the Earth forces did something unexpected. They started pushing them. Using tractor beams and some clever flying, the human ships herded the Zorkel fleet. Like cowboys rounding up cattle, they pushed all the alien ships together. What are they doing? Zorg cried. He got his answer soon enough. From Earth, a massive beam of energy shot into space. It wrapped around the entire Zorkel fleet like a giant bubble. Then, with a flash of light, the bubble and all the ships inside it vanished. On Earth, Dr. Chen jumped up and down. It worked, she shouted. The teleporter worked. You see, instead of destroying the Zorkel, the humans had decided to give them a taste of their own medicine. They teleported the entire fleet to a planet on the far side of the galaxy. A nice planet, but one very, very far from Earth. In the blink of an eye, the mighty Zorkel invasion force found itself stranded billions of miles from home. And to make matters worse, all those little metal bits were still gumming up their ships. They weren't going anywhere anytime soon. Back on Earth, people were celebrating again. They had faced the biggest, baddest fleet in the galaxy and won. David had beaten Goliath, and he'd done it in style. As the parties raged around the world, Captain Rodriguez found Dr. Chen staring at the stars. Penny for your thoughts? Rodriguez asked. Dr. Chen smiled. I was just thinking, we won today. But the galaxy's a big place. I wonder what other adventures are waiting for us out there. Rodriguez laughed and patted her friend on the back. Whatever comes next, she said, Earth will be ready. And so, as the sun rose on a new day, humanity looked to the stars not with fear, but with excitement. They had proven themselves on the galactic stage. The adventure was just beginning. Aliens scratched their heads. Far, far away from Earth, on a planet with 3 suns and purple grass, the Zorkel were having a very bad day. Actually, they were having a very bad month. General Zorg sat in a makeshift command center, which was really just a big tent. His 5 eyes were twitching, and he was pulling on his antennae in frustration. Around him, other Zorkal were running around, trying to fix their broken ships and figure out where in the galaxy they were. "I don't understand," Zorg shouted for the 100th time. "How did those primitive humans defeat us?" "Us, the mighty Zorkal." An aide approached him nervously. "Sir, we've managed to get some of our computers working. We've been studying the data from our battles with the humans." Zorg growled. "Well, what have you found out?" The aide gulped. "Sir, it seems the humans are different from other species we've encountered." "Different how?" Zorg demanded. The aide brought up a holographic display. It showed scenes from human history, ancient battles, explorers crossing oceans, astronauts landing on the moon. "Sir, the humans have a long history of fighting each other," the aide explained. Zorg blinked all 5 of his eyes. "They fight themselves. Why?" "Resources, land, differing beliefs," the aide listed. "But here's the interesting part. Every time they face a big challenge, they seem to level up." "Level up?" Zorg asked, confused. "Yes, sir. They get better, faster. They invent new technologies, new strategies. It's like they thrive on adversity." Zorg scratched his football-shaped head with one of his 4 hands. "That makes no sense. Adversity is supposed to crush species, not make them stronger." Meanwhile, back on the Zorkal homeworld, the Empress was not happy. Not happy at all. She had just heard about the defeat of their invasion fleet. Her scales were turning from their usual shimmery green to an angry red. "Bring me the Grand Historian," she bellowed. Soon, an old Zorkal with wispy white hair and glasses perched on his long nose appeared. He was carrying a stack of glowing tablets. "Your Majesty," he wheezed, bowing as low as his creaky back would allow. "You summoned me." The Empress glared at him. "Historian, tell me about these humans. How could they defeat our mighty empire?" The old Zorkal adjusted his glasses and tapped on one of his tablets. "Ah, humans. Fascinating species, Your Majesty. Did you know they once thought the universe revolved around their planet? Quite amusing, really. I don't care about their silly beliefs." The Empress snapped. "Tell me how they fight." "Oh, yes, of course," the historian said. He pulled up image after image on his tablets. "You see, humans have been fighting since they first crawled out of their caves. They've fought with sticks and stones, swords and spears, guns and bombs." The Empress leaned forward, interested despite herself. "Go on." "But here's the truly remarkable thing," the historian continued, his eyes shining with excitement. "Every time the humans face a threat, whether it's from nature or from each other, they adapt. They create. They find solutions that no one else would think of." He showed the Empress scenes from human wars, but also scenes of humans working together, building great monuments, curing diseases, inventing new technologies. "Their strength isn't in their weapons, Your Majesty," the historian explained. "It's in their minds, their creativity, their ability to work together in the face of danger." The Empress sat back on her throne, deep in thought. "So, you're saying these humans are unpredictable?" "Exactly," the historian exclaimed. "Most species, when faced with a superior force, give up. Humans, they dig in their heels. They get creative. They find ways to win that no one else would even think of." Back on the purple grass planet, Zorg was coming to the same realization. He was watching recordings of the battle, seeing how the humans had used simple robots and clever tricks to defeat the mighty Zorkal fleet. It's like they don't know they're supposed to lose," Zorg muttered. His aide nodded. "Exactly, sir. In all our years of conquering, we've never met a species quite like them." Zorg slumped in his chair. "So what do we do now? How do we beat an enemy that gets stronger every time we attack them?" On the Zorkal homeworld, the Empress was asking the same question. The Grand Historian smiled a toothless smile. "Your Majesty," he said gently, "perhaps the question isn't how to beat them, but how to understand them. Maybe even learn from them." The Empress's eyes widened in shock. Learn? From a lesser species? Preposterous. But even as she said it, a small part of her wondered, could the old historian be right? Could there be something to learn from these strange, unpredictable humans? As night fell on the purple grass planet, Zorg looked up at the unfamiliar stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, a tiny blue marble that had brought the mighty Zorkal Empire to its knees. For the first time in his life, Zorg felt a new emotion: respect. These humans were worthy opponents. More than that, they were a mystery, a puzzle to be solved. As he drifted off to sleep, Zorg found himself actually looking forward to their next encounter with the humans. Not to fight them, but to see what new surprises they would come up with. The mighty Zorkal Empire had faced its greatest challenge, and in doing so, they had learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate the human spirit, because when backed into a corner, humans don't just fight back. They change the rules of the game entirely. The big showdown. The Zorkal Empire was angry. Really, really angry. They had been beaten twice by the humans, and they weren't going to let it happen again. This time, they were bringing everything they had. On Earth, humans were getting ready too. They knew the Zorkal wouldn't give up easily. Dr. Emma Chen and Captain Maria Rodriguez were in charge of Earth's defenses. "They're coming," Dr. Chen said, looking at a big screen showing thousands of Zorkal ships. "And they've brought friends." Captain Rodriguez nodded. "Then we'll just have to bring our friends too." All around the world, humans were working together like never before. They built new spaceships, invented crazy weapons, and came up with wild plans. Everyone had a job to do, from kids in school to grandmas and grandpas. In space, the biggest Zorkal fleet ever seen was heading towards Earth. At the front was a ship so big it looked like a floating city. This was the Empress's personal ship, the Star Crusher. Inside the Star Crusher, the Empress sat on her throne. She looked mean and determined. "This time," she said, "we will not underestimate the humans. We will crush them once and for all." The Zorkal soldiers all cheered, but one old advisor looked worried. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "are we sure this is wise? The humans have surprised us before." The Empress glared at him. "Are you scared of some puny humans?" she asked. The advisor shook his head. "Not scared, Your Majesty. Cautious. The humans are unpredictable." But the Empress wouldn't listen. She was too angry to be careful. "Attack," she yelled. The Zorkal fleet moved towards Earth. They expected to see the human ships coming to fight them. But there was nothing. Earth looked empty and quiet. "Where are they?" the Empress asked. "Have they given up?" Suddenly, alarms started blaring all over the Zorkal ships. Hundreds of small objects were zooming towards them from all directions. "What are those?" a Zorkal officer yelled. They soon found out. The objects were small robots, just like before. But these were different. As they hit the Zorkal ships, they exploded into clouds of sparkly dust. "Ha!" the Empress laughed. "Is this their great defense? Glitter." But then strange things started happening. Zorkal soldiers began to giggle, then laugh. Soon, the whole fleet was filled with laughing aliens who couldn't stop. On Earth, Dr. Chen grinned. "The laugh gas worked," she said. "Now, Phase 2. From behind the moon, the Earth fleet appeared. But they weren't alone. Ships from Mars, Venus, and even Jupiter's moons flew with them. Humans had made friends all over the solar system, and everyone was here to help. The Earth ships flew circles around the laughing Zorkal fleet. They used special beams to shut down the alien weapons and engines. It was like a big space dance, with Earth leading and the Zorkal stumbling around. But the Star Crusher was tough. It kept fighting even when the other ships were down. The Empress was not going to give up easily. "Enough of this," she yelled, still giggling a bit. "Prepare the planet killer beam." A huge gun on the Star Crusher started to glow. It was aiming right at Earth. Captain Rodriguez saw the danger. "We need to stop that beam," she shouted. "Any ideas?" Dr. Chen thought fast. "I have a crazy idea," she said, "but it might just work." She explained her plan quickly. It was wild and dangerous, but it was their only hope. Captain Rodriguez flew her ship straight at the Star Crusher. Behind her, other ships carried a special mirror, bigger than a football field. Just as the Star Crusher fired its beam, Rodriguez's ship grabbed the mirror with a tractor beam. She spun around, putting the mirror right in the beam's path. The huge energy beam hit the mirror and bounced back. It struck the Star Crusher, making the whole ship glow like a Christmas tree. Inside, the Empress watched in horror as her controls went crazy. "What's happening?" she screamed. The Star Crusher's weapons overloaded, but instead of exploding, something weird happened. The whole ship started to shrink. In just a few seconds, the mighty Star Crusher had turned into a ship no bigger than a toy. The Empress's angry yells could barely be heard. They were so tiny. All around Earth, people cheered. The Zorkel fleet was defeated. Some ships were shut down. Some were laughing too hard to fight. And their flagship was now small enough to fit in your pocket. As Earth ships rounded up the defeated Zorkel, Captain Rodriguez looked at Dr. Chen. "We did it," she said. "We actually did it." Dr. Chen nodded, smiling. "We did. But you know what? I have a feeling this is just the beginning." She was right. Earth had won the big showdown, but the adventure was far from over. The galaxy was a big place, full of wonders and dangers, and humanity was ready to explore it all. As the sun set on Earth that day, people looked up at the stars with new eyes. They had faced the biggest threat in history and come out on top. Whatever came next, Earth would be ready. The big showdown was over, but the real adventure was just beginning. Humans rule, aliens drool. The big space battle was over. Earth had won. People all over the planet were dancing in the streets. They had faced the scariest aliens in the galaxy and come out on top. It was time to party. But while everyone was celebrating, Dr. Emma Chen and Captain Maria Rodriguez were hard at work. They had a tiny spaceship to deal with, the one that used to be the huge Star Crusher. "What should we do with it?" Captain Rodriguez asked, holding up the toy-sized ship. Inside, they could see the Zorkel Empress, no bigger than an ant, shaking her tiny fist at them. Dr. Chen thought for a moment. "I have an idea," she said with a smile. A few days later, in New York City, a new exhibit opened at the American Museum of Natural History. The star attraction, a dollhouse-size Zorkel spaceship, complete with tiny alien crew. Kids pressed their faces against the glass, watching the little aliens go about their day. "Look, Mom," one boy shouted. "The alien queen is trying to use the bathroom." The Empress, hearing this, turned an even deeper shade of blue. How embarrassing. But not all the Zorkel ended up as museum exhibits. Many of them decided they liked Earth and wanted to stay. It turned out that when they weren't trying to conquer planets, Zorkel were actually pretty fun to hang out with. In Tokyo, a Zorkel named Zlorp opened a sushi restaurant. His 8 arms made him really good at rolling sushi. People lined up around the block to try his alien special rolls. In Rio de Janeiro, a group of Zorkel joined a samba school. Their wiggly antennae made for some very interesting dance moves. They became the hit of the carnival parade. Even grumpy old General Zorg found a new calling. He became a football coach in Manchester, England. His 5 eyes were great for spotting openings on the field. His team started winning every game. But it wasn't just on Earth that things were changing. News of how the humans beat the mighty Zorkel spread across the galaxy. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know more about Earth. Alien tourists started arriving in spaceships of all shapes and sizes. They wanted to see the planet that had defeated the Zorkel Empire. Earth had to set up a special space tourism board to handle all the visitors. Some aliens came to trade. It turned out humans were really good at making things other aliens liked. Blue jeans became the hottest fashion trend in the Andromeda galaxy. An alien rock band had a #1 hit with their cover of Stayin' Alive. Other aliens came to learn. They were amazed by human creativity and problem-solving skills. Universities on Earth started offering exchange programs with schools on other planets. One day, a ship arrived from a planet called Sorbox. The Exorboxians were in trouble. A big asteroid was heading for their planet, and they didn't know how to stop it. "We heard that humans are good at solving impossible problems," the Exorboxian leader said. "Can you help us?" Dr. Chen and Captain Rodriguez looked at each other and grinned. "We sure can," they said together. Soon, a team of Earth's best scientists and space pilots were on their way to Exorbox. They used the same clever thinking that beat the Zorkel to save the alien planet. The Exorboxians were so grateful, they declared Earth their best friends in the galaxy. Back on the Zorkel homeworld, things were changing too. The Zorkel who had been to Earth came back with new ideas. They told stories about human kindness and creativity. "Maybe conquering other planets isn't the best way to do things," they said. "Look how much fun the humans have just being friends with everyone." Slowly but surely, the Zorkel started to change. They turned their warships into cruise liners for space tourists. They opened their planet to visitors from all over the galaxy. Some of them even started a band playing Earth music. They called themselves the Grateful Zorkel. As for the Empress, she eventually got tired of living in a museum. She asked the humans if she could have her ship back. "If you promise not to attack anyone, we'll return you to normal size," Dr. Chen told her. The Empress agreed. Once she was big again, she surprised everyone by apologizing. "We were wrong about humans," she said. "You're not weak at all. You're the strongest species we've ever met. Not because of your weapons, but because of your hearts and minds." From that day on, the Zorkel became Earth's strongest allies in space. Together, they helped keep peace in the galaxy and solved all sorts of space problems. Earth had gone from a little blue planet that no one noticed to the most famous place in the galaxy. Aliens from all over came to visit, to trade, to learn, and to make friends. As for humans, they took to space travel like ducks to water. Soon, there were human colonies on Mars, on Europa, and even on planets in other solar systems. Everywhere they went, humans brought their special mix of creativity, courage, and kindness. One night, as Dr. Chen and Captain Rodriguez were stargazing, Rodriguez asked, "Did you ever think we'd end up here? Rulers of the galaxy." Dr. Chen laughed. "We don't rule the galaxy, Maria. We're just good neighbors." Rodriguez nodded. "You're right. And you know what? I think that's even better." As they watched, a shooting star streaked across the sky. But it wasn't a star at all. It was a ship full of alien tourists, coming to visit the little blue planet that had changed the whole galaxy. Earth's adventure among the stars had only just begun, and it was going to be amazing.